So if you're watching Marcus and I on Monday, which seems a hell of a long time ago now, I can't believe it's only 3 days, we said we'd be back this week with some more considered thoughts on Apple Vision. Not Reality Pro, Apple Vision. Marcus, how's the rest of your week been?
It's been a bit of a hectic one, to be honest. I wasn't quite sure where to put myself for most of the week because it was just too much information coming out that it was a bit of an overload, So
yeah,
I've just been trying to kind of take everything in and make sense of it, basically. But it's been a very exciting week overall.
It really has. Before we get going on all serious issues, I was thinking to myself this afternoon, getting ready for this with you, what do render artists do now?
This is a great question.
What are we going to find for you next? I mean, it's an iPhone, but kind of, okay, it's a rectangle with a bit of glass on front.
Yeah,
That's interesting, isn't it?
The way I see it is like the renders were just the tip of the iceberg in terms of they were the evolution of just what we were thinking. And of course, this product is not the last in this line. There will be many more going forward. And so I hope that me and you can continue to kind of cover this product line, and I think it's going to be a very interesting one as it moves forward into kind of overtaking something like the iPhone.
Yep, I was speaking with somebody this morning of the camp that I want to put my head under the blankets, this isn't really happening. And my kind of answer was, look, I think on Monday we may just have seen the start of the post-desktop PC, whatever you want to call it, computing era. Mm-hmm. It'll do my work life out, I'm sure, but the change is coming. Now, we'll try and go through this as, you've got a dramatic thunderstorm going background as well, just for added drama. Love it. I couldn't have bought Foley better than that. We'll try and go through this as methodically as we can and let you cover as many of the points that you've been able to take on board. I'm sure you've been watching as many videos as me, and I know you've been talking a lot on Twitter. I guess the best place to start is almost the first comment we made when we saw it on Monday, which is the appearance, the look, the size.
The design, yes.
Now, your first render, front on, was ever so close.
Yes. It wasn't bad. I think it's kind of like funny how close the information sketch was, right? I think we could probably see that was an early development device like we thought it might be. And that kind of had maybe an in-house strap and things like that, but a general form that was there. I think a lot of us were kind of optimistic about the technology that was going to go in there, and we've seen that it's extremely advanced, but maybe there was kind of even more tech than we thought was going to be in there, and so it's a little bit bigger than what we had originally thought, but actually not that much. If you look at the AR model that they provide and compare it to some of the designs that have been out there, actually it's only a little bit thicker. I think that the way it's rounded makes it look bigger in these renderings, but if you were to hold it in your hand, I think it's actually going to be quite small.
So, I mean, again, probably most of the people that have clicked onto this video will be aware, but just to make it clear, it kind of comprises of 4 pieces, isn't it? There's the front panel, then you've got the light shield, or the softer part that goes up against the face, you've got the band and the battery pack. That's kind of the 4 components we're dealing with, right?
Yes, and they're, just like we mentioned, this is going to be something similar to kind of like that Apple Watch kind of like tailored products experience. So with Apple Watch, you had to measure your wrist, and then that would give you kind of the watch band size, and then you could also choose if you wanted the smaller or the larger screen, and then that would kind of come in a pack for you. And it's going to be a little bit of a similar experience because they want the comfort to be so good on this and the fit to be perfect. They've kind of built it in a modular way. So you've got the front section, like you said, that has arms and audio built in. There is kind of like a back head strap, which is designed to tighten it to your head, but also keep it cool. That's why we have this crazy kind of like 3D knit design. And we have the light seal, like you said. So the light seal will come in a couple of different sizes, and that's the bit that kind of holds the device to your face. But it's really important that you get that right in terms of sizing, because it could make the device too tight, too loose. And especially when you've got like the face tracking that they're doing, the eye tracking things, that's really essential. It's also very essential for comfort because you get these big red marks around your face. And my guess is that Apple doesn't want that to happen, right?
So there's a couple of things I saw this week. One of our mutuals, Dan Barbera, has been out at Apple Park, and he's mentioned there's also a top band. It's optional. On his demonstration, he wore the top band, and apparently that would helped a lot with the balance, which stands to reason it would do. And before you come back on that, talking to the redness, I was just writing a piece this afternoon. Joanna Stern of the Wall Street Journal, a very, very well-respected tech journalist, she was there and tried it on, and she's posted pictures on YouTube of a very bright red forehead and a feeling of nausea. But the guys at Apple Park made it clear they only had so many different light seals that weren't correctly fitted to their face, which and the lenses equally weren't necessarily correct for their eyes. So all of this goes toward that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And I'd be very curious, like, for instance, something that was mentioned in patents, but I don't know if it's on this device, is if they're making the active cooling kind of pull air from the face area. There is a very interesting kind of structure underneath this light seal that helps with that. But the ultimate truth is this device is not sub 300 grams as we thought it might be. Apparently it's just as heavy as some of the other headsets, but obviously
it's about 3 pounds, isn't it?
I don't know exactly how much.
I think I heard, because I've been trying to take in as much as possible. I think it's about, have I got that wrong? No, I can't be saying it's 3 pounds. No, it'd be no, I'm wrong. No, it's more like a pound, just over a pound, I think. So I didn't hear it in grams because it was an American podcast I was listening to. I think it is slightly heavier than everyone was anticipating. Yeah. But of course, it is all made from premium materials.
And you've got that big piece of glass. So regardless of whatever they do, even if you get the right light seal, you're going to have a bit of a red mark on your face, right? And that's just to do with how this thing clamps. Like, it has to clamp this way and that way onto your face. So it's the only way. And I think only, for instance, bringing down the weight in the future and kind of maybe readdressing ergonomics would get rid of this, or maybe a lighter material. But I'm sure this is something they're going to look into in the future. And then this top strap, basically, there's a really great VR YouTuber called, sadly, it's Bradley.
Yes.
I really think that they should have invited to this event, because if they really wanted to put test their metal, they should have let him go there, because he really understands the technologies and this. But basically, one of the lightest headsets on the market, the Big Screen VR, which is a PC dedicated headset, like, he tried it for a very long time. He uses it as like a work driver, and even he said it needs this top strap, and he actually put it on this way. And Big Screen have now started to send out these top straps, because you really do need it for ergonomics.
That balance, yeah.
That's why I think Apple have included this top strap, because they know that even after extended periods of time, it is going to become maybe slightly uncomfortable. Now
I was just going to mention, I've listened to many podcasts this week and watched a lot of YouTube, and it's funny because everybody is talking about exactly the same experience. And to make it clear, and I'm sure you'll understand why, the 30-minute sessions that all of these journalists have been under extremely controlled environments. Yeah. Perfect lighting in an air-conditioned room with plenty of space in front of them, and only allowed to use certain apps as well. And obviously, Apple want to show this off as best as possible. And it's still not really completely finished, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's typical Apple fashion to kind of create this very controlled message about their product. Obviously, there's something that we're going to get onto in a sec, but this really is kind of like a product that is a bridge. It's not something that Apple would usually release. It's something at the very tip of what is possible. So they want to make sure that what you're seeing is kind of like what they intend for the product to be released next year. And I still believe that there's some kinks to iron out. And there's still a lot of information we really don't know about this headset. And so it's going to be very interesting to see. But for instance, just like you've said, they did very even lighting in these rooms. So how do these cameras and screens respond to kind of low lighting or very bright situations?
Yeah.
Because if you're in a living room watching a movie, there's no point in having, with this headset on, there's no point in having like super bright lights on or whatever. You know what I mean? So it is going to be very interesting to see how this comes out. Another thing that apparently they weren't really showing too much was this front pass-through display, which is really interesting, right? But I think it's because they really don't want people to judge it too much. And I think if the funny thing is, it's just optics, right? If you have a load of YouTubers and things taking pictures of themselves with the pass-through, and it doesn't look as good as they intend or whatever, basically it's going to overshadow the whole event. Just people with these pictures. I mean, if you already look at the YouTube thumbnails, every single person talking about Apple Vision Pro is talking the same things, but also every single thumbnail is them wearing this headset, right? It's this new iconic feature. And I think they thought it could do more damage having like bad press on this than good press, because it really is like sense. It really is like this it's one of the most iconic and most interesting features about this product is the pass-through display. And I also think it's the most important part of the product. Now, everyone seems to think, oh, it's going to go or whatever, but this feature for me is here to stay like until the very end, and it actually speaks to their intention with this product, you know.
And I believe it was the pass-through not being fully completed to the standards that Apple actually want when it comes to ship early next year. That is why we saw no Apple management, employees, staff wearing it. They were aware it wasn't quite right, so they wanted to only let it be experienced in controlled environments, which again makes sense.
Yeah, it's a feature that can be heavily judged, you know, and it's the feature that's dividing the most amount of people, which is really, I find it really ironic, right? Because people don't necessarily judge the VR headsets the same way, but as soon as someone puts a display on the front that shows your eyes, then all of a sudden it becomes a little bit creepy, right? A little bit dystopian. But actually, I would say the opposite is true. Like, not having that feature will eventually lead to a more dystopian kind of reality. And the reason to put this feature on there is because I believe they intend to move this technology stack forward into the future of their products. They don't intend to kind of switch the technology stack. I think you call this reprojection instead of full AR, which is where you take photons from the real world with the cameras and then you recreate them on the displays. And I think they just understand that this is a technology that's going to give them far more expansion into the future of the product. And what that basically means is that you need some kind of display in the front to be able to see the person's eyes. If their ultimate goal is glasses, but they're using reprojection, then this is the only way to kind of achieve that, right? And I think it looks a bit creepy now because it's the very first iteration of the product. But the eventual goal of this is that it will just kind of cover the whole front, cover the sensors, cover everything, and just make it look like you're kind of looking through a pair of glasses.
So by no means trying to play devil's advocate here, because I'm very pro the whole idea of it, but just sort of balancing the conversation, the argument up. There was something I read was saying, well, say it's a family of 4. If you were the only one in the room watching Avatar and experiencing what's going on, how removed are you going to be from the rest of the family, even though they can see your reactions? And does that mean you're going to have to end up buying 4 headsets for the whole, it is a whole new, I guess, an era that we've got to get used to, a whole new community almost that we've got to get used to. I mean, moving forward, if you were to put on your crystal, I'm not going to say glasses because that's too close to what we're talking about. If we spin up the crystal ball and you go 15 years into the future, would you see that family, when these are more affordable, do you see that as the way forward? Families would sit down to watch movies, TV together with these on?
So, yes, but I want to preface that by saying that I don't think Apple intends a family of 4 to buy this product now, right?
No, I totally agree.
Not even a little bit. I think that is the ultimate goal. And by the time it gets to that point, the technology will be in a different state that these kind of like barriers that currently exist with this iteration of the product that we're perceiving won't exist anymore in the same way. So I think that we'll only start to, for instance, buy these in terms of like a replacement for the iPhone in maybe 4 years, 5 years, maybe more, right? Up until that point, this product is going to be the provenance of a very few select people. I think for the majority, it's really not at that standpoint yet. And then when it does eventually get to that point where we're wearing it in the house, it's going to be a different experience. So this idea of being isolated from someone when you're watching a movie won't necessarily be true, because if we're all wearing these glasses, then we will see these shared items together, right? So you'll see me watching this, if I allow it, to see this kind of giant projected screen, and then come sit down and watch it with me, or you know what I mean, or even do that from very far away.
And before we begin sort of breaking into the specs, which now we know what they are, I really want to try and pull that out of you to see what you make of them. Was there anything that really surprised you from the get-go of what they announced?
I think the integrated audio surprised me. I didn't think that they were going to do they weren't going to do such a big effort on that part. I thought that they would put some audio in and then have it focus on like the headphones and things. But what it actually seems like they're doing is the complete opposite. They don't want to leave anything out. This is the full product. Like, you can have the best experience with just this, and then like you can have a more private experience with the headphones or whatever. What else surprised me? I mean, I was surprised by a little bit by the design, I have to be honest. Like the strap and everything, I thought was a little bit more out there, and then kind of like what Apple was doing, it felt a little bit more futuristic and techy, but that's probably kind of intentional.
So beginning to look at some of the spec now, the battery. Now, when we were talking on Monday Live, we made mention the fact there didn't seem to be a USB-C port on the glasses. Well, there is on the battery, isn't there? So
yeah,
there is no hot swap, from what I understand. So you either use the battery or you plug yourself into the wall. And it would appear that they're very much imagining that you are not going anywhere when you're wearing this headset, which would kind of make sense. Yeah. You're going to sit and do something, right?
Yeah, I mean, so they intend this for kind of like, let's call them stationary places, I think, right? Which is what we thought. This is not an outside device, although eventually it will be. They're trying to encourage you to use it in some places outside the home, but still kind of like isolated, like a coffee shop or an airplane or what have you. Yeah, so there's no USB on the headset. The USB's not on the power pack. So yes, it does. I do think that they intend you to buy more than one battery still. Mm-hmm. If you want to, if you're someone who's maybe going to be out and about, that is a possibility, say on a plane. But maybe you can plug a USB into a USB-C on the power pack and then into the headset. But basically, I find this, it's encouraging and not. It's encouraging in the sense that you can use it like a plugged-in device, which is good because then it means you can have indefinite, right? But what I do find the most strange is that the battery pack says that you get about 2 hours of battery life, right?
Yeah, but apparently it is bang on too.
Yeah, but for instance, how long is your average movie nowadays? It's longer than 2 hours, right?
Well, I think everyone was finding the irony. They were showing Avatar as their demo movie, which is about 3.5 hours.
Right, you can't watch the full film without plugging it in, and I think that says a lot. And if you're on a plane, if you don't have a full power port or whatever, you will require 2 battery packs in order to watch a movie. Now, this is a very strange choice, I think, right? But I think what this does is this attests to how Apple have positioned this product and what they've decided to do. So this is intended as a mass market device, and that is it's shown by the features, right? So they're very much tailored towards kind of an extension of the things that most people already do with their devices. You know, watching content, talking to people, some minor productivity. Instead of, for instance, what the XR or VR crowd was waiting for this device, because they were kind of expecting kind of like this new super high-end headset that will integrate into all of their kind of ecosystems and things. And so maybe they were a little bit disappointed, but the mass market is like, okay, this is interesting to us. And I think that's very, it's very intentional. And the reason behind that is only a very few amount of people will actually be able to afford this device right now. But over the next few years, people are going to see people using it. They're going to desire it very heavily. And then by the time that they release a device that is affordable, people are going to want it bad and they're going to understand a lot of the stuff. Now, the reason they've released this product now and not, for instance, later when it is at that point is because they need basically software developers to create the use cases for this headset, right? And plenty of ecosystems so that you can do whatever you want in the headset when it eventually gets to that point. And that's a decision that's different than what Apple would usually take when it comes to a product like this. But I think they just know that this is a long roadmap and that it's going to take a lot of time and that they need that kind of like content before they can move forward. But what they've shown with this device is that it's a platform, right? This is the minimum experience they intend to create, which is what we thought that they were going to do. You know, the experience will never get worse than what it is on this headset, ever. Even on the cheaper devices, it will not get worse than this. So don't worry about that. They're not going to lose any features to bring down the price. This is the minimum experience that they intend to create. This is the technology that will do it. And they basically just intend to iterate on each of these parts of the technology over time to make the headset better. The displays, the lenses, the pass-through, the ergonomics, the speakers. If you look, it's almost a little bit modular in the way that it's made. Expect this to get much better over time. So it's a bit of a strange positioning, but it actually makes sense for the future of spatial computing that they want to make.
I mean, to some degree, on Monday, Apple were kind of on hiding to nothing. They were never going to get it right for everybody. I think the best they could do was present their case as they wanted to at this time. Now, for somebody like you that's a massive proponent of AR, VR, the whole experience, Do you think they've delivered enough to begin to convince people? Well, certainly these first units, I would imagine, will fly out the door, even though they're only available in the US to start with, aren't they?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But I mean, do you think they've done enough to whet the appetite and convince people, having seen now? I walked away from it with two big carryways, I think. One we'll get onto in a little bit, media, movies, just looks like it's a no-brainer. Why would you ever want to buy a TV again?
Mm-hmm.
That, to some degree, is one of the things. And also, I was very skeptical beforehand that it could replace a Mac, but it looks bloody close. It really does.
Yes, I mean,
apparently the eye recognition, because it's all done with looking at what the app you want and then just simply clicking your fingers, isn't it?
Yeah.
And every reviewer has said it is freaky how accurate the eye recognition is.
Yeah, I think Apple have done what Apple do for this product, just like they always do. They have created this incredible base that is ultra polished, and it's going to provide the best platform for developers and users, just like they always do, right? They took all of the hard points, the things that you had to figure out yourself or what have you, and they made them super simple, so it's super easy for you to use, especially from a developer's perspective. But even the interaction, you just look at it, you click, you do this. These are all things that weren't necessarily defined for the medium, and Apple has basically allowed you a way to do that. And then all of the hard things that would be for developers, let's say occlusion or whatever, like cutting something out, these are all built into the SDK that Apple is providing. Mm-hmm. So they've really thought all of this out, and it's going to provide a kind of a bridge for current developers to move all of the applications they have into this headset very easily. And that's another reason why I think all of the UI and stuff is mostly 2D, or like this 2.5D, because it's providing a bridge.
I didn't quite get 2.5. I don't know if that's me being a Luddite. Just run that through me again.
Yeah, 2.5 is like, the way I would look at it is something they call hypercards, or like this. So you take a 2D thing, right, and say you've got a 3D model, you put it in front of the card with the text next to it. So it looks 2D from this perspective, but if you were to move and shift, you see that it has depth, right?
An element to it, yeah.
Yeah. And I think this is there, and then there are some volume elements, but I think they're basically wanting to bridge the experience that they've got on current devices with this. That's why it looks the way it does, but it will kind of like evolve over time. But into like how that then comes back into what you were saying about, is this enough? I think that overall, like, this is the best, like generally the best hardware that's on the market. There are some other items that are very comparable or what, but there's nothing that has this in this package. And I think even though if the form factor is not enough for consumer right now, I think there's a lot of interest even in this product. And if this is the minimum experience and it's only going to get better, then I can imagine by the time it's ready for it to take over an iPhone, a lot of people are going to want this device in a big way.
And again, going back to Dan's review I watched last night, and I'll try and remember to leave a link to that. It was a really good, honest review he did. He was just sitting in his hotel room, obviously just having got back from Apple Park. But there was a bit of video he was watching where he was basically in a family's living room and the kids blew out candles on a cake. Mm-hmm. And he said he honestly felt as if somebody there was blowing smoke toward him. It was that real, apparently, which is insane. I mean, I thought it was a really good point he made, because he showed the bit of video that he was talking about. But to imagine that you're in that kind of a space and experience, that it feels that real.
Mm-hmm. Well, we talked a little bit about this, how your brain kind of hallucinates reality, right? Like if you give it a convincing enough image, then it's your brain's never seen these things before, throughout all of human history, your brain thinks what it sees is generally real. So it has this incredible effect when it's real enough, you start to believe it.
Camera-wise, we know there's 12 cameras on there, and then there's got IR, I think, faces down, so it tracks your movement. Because again, your fingers don't have to be in any particular position; they can be literally anywhere, and the IR will pick it up. And the LiDAR is obviously facing forward. I think that's the kind of layout, right?
Yes, it is, and it's exactly that. They've done so much to make this experience incredible, and I think it's interesting that you just talked about this kind of picture thing, right? Because I think that this is really interesting, because iPhone kind of and a lot of smartphone makers, but they really took kind of photography to the next level in on a mobile platform, right? And I think this is a hint at what Apple's evolution of photography will look like, these kind of spatial photos, which I think are really interesting, or reliving these memories. That was one of the strange parts of the thing, because it felt really unnatural for somebody to kind of have to wear this headset while they're doing this capture, in a sense.
Like a family barbecue or whatever. Yeah, you're the one with the headset on. Yeah.
I thought, like, could you not integrate like your iPhone into this? Like, two people video the same thing, and then you've got multiple views to generate this. Like, that would be interesting. Or even if it was like an external, like, little handheld camera that you just point and then it's like captures footage. I think that would be really interesting. But that again shows you that this is a device that's a stepping stone to a future. It's a bridge, because this is the intention. We want to be able to create spatial photographs just by looking at something, but the hardware isn't quite in a form factor that makes that comfortable enough yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it is the intention. You can see with this product that is the path that they're going to get to. So it's very interesting.
And now on to a couple of subjects. I think back in January or February, you picked on very early on, was the whole Disney association. But it's this thing I really wanted to drive home. And by the way, guys, if you're watching this video and there's any questions you've got, Marcus and I will be answering them all. So get involved, leave some comments, and we'll be sure to get back to you. But certainly Disney you picked up on. And also I just want to drive home this point that people have got to begin looking about 10, 12 years forward with Apple all the time. When they bring out something, like when they launched Apple TV and said there's nothing on there, I would swear that they knew at that point that this we know it was already in development because Apple TV came out in 2018. They knew that they were going to begin connecting these dots. Absolutely. It was all part of a bigger jigsaw puzzle, wasn't it? And for all we know, Apple Car will be the next thing this plays into in another 10 years down the line.
Very, very much so. You know, like you posted earlier that Apple is in it for the long game. That's exactly how they do it. You know, they think about how one item can exponentially increase all of their others and not just be an addition. You know, and I think they think about that heavily. And like we said, this is the device that kind of unifies everyone's path into their services, which is exactly what they want. So I just see a further integration of services moving forward with this headset. And yes, I did think that the Disney thing was interesting, right? Because I don't think what we were seeing was actual, here's what it's going to look like when you use Disney in the headset. It was, here's what we could do with the headset, right? Which I thought was a bit strange. My guess is that was probably the video on Disney's side as opposed to Apple's side.
How soon do you think the AR tech could come to sports? I only mention it because having just written this today, and I am no football fan, I preface that by saying I barely know anything about the game, but Lionel Messi, who I have heard of, or Messi, has just signed for, I think it's Inter Miami, in the MLS. Now, Apple has just signed a 10-year deal to get the subscriptions on Major League Soccer. The week of the headset being released, suddenly you get the biggest star in the world signing that is going to go to Major League Soccer. Again, I just think everything is coming together.
Yeah, I don't know if that one's coincidence or not. I mean, it would seem like, but actually, a lot of the technology needed to enable these.
That's what I wanted to ask. Yeah, how near is that tech to be able to bring live sports?
It's actually in most of these arenas already.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
okay.
Like they've been doing a lot of these front row seats and things like that with just normal screens for a long time. So my guess is that they probably can make use of a lot of the infrastructure that already exists to enable this.
So I'm assuming soccer would be one of the sports that doesn't lend itself as well. The best sports are going to be ones that are enclosed, like basketball, for instance, and boxing, something like. I mean, boxing would be. Holy, I mean, Jesus, you'd be in the ring with the guys, wouldn't you?
Yes, exactly. It's going to be very, like, all these new perspectives.
Tennis, I guess, would be good as well.
Yes, for sure. But it seems like there is, even for things like football or baseball or whatever, it seems like there is technology in place to kind of allow this right from the get-go. But it was so amazing to see all these experiences because they really do kind of, they're the evolution that a lot of us wanted, right? That they were a lot, you know, I talked about Disney and I talked about sports, but this is not necessarily a new concept, just maybe the way that I had envisioned it was. And a lot of people have wanted all of these things to exist in this medium for a long time, but Apple, the great thing that Apple does is they actually made these concepts real and they did them in a way that is going to make sense to a lot of people. I do have to say though, I did find the Disney section a bit creepy. Like I really think they could have done it so much better. Like this, especially when they showed like this 2D screen, and then all of a sudden it was like adverts everywhere. I was like, this is not the future.
Show it as it should.
It's total Disney future, yeah. Advertising in your face everywhere, buy this, buy that. But it didn't seem like a very Apple-esque thing, you know. I think one of the best pieces of advice give to any designer who's going to be moving forward with XR is every pixel that you use is a pixel you take away from reality. and you don't want any pixels away from reality. So
remind me to use that as the title for the video.
Yeah.
Remind me to use that quote.
No worries.
So moving on to one of the biggest areas that, as I said, I saw too that, definitely this, I can very easily now be convinced that this could take over from general Mac computing. I saw a brilliant picture someone just put up. Everyone does these desk tour videos on YouTube. He just literally put up a blank IKEA wooden desk and said, that is your desk tour of the future because we won't need anything else. So that I think I'm convinced of, but media and movies now, wow, we are walking into a whole new arena there. Even I, as much as you and I have talked through the course of this year, didn't really take on board how big it could be. Mm-hmm. What the experience, it just looks absolutely mind-blowing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it really does look incredible. And, in part where we, me and you thought this product was going to be called Apple Vision right from the start, because we believe this is an evolution of television.
I love the fact you gave me a little bit of credit for that. I can thank you and I'll send you a check afterwards.
That's all right. We can
no, that was one of your best plays. Absolutely. I mean, got that. You nailed that because you always said it's an extension of vision and media.
Yeah, it goes over your eyes, like it's taken over glasses. It's an evolution of television and screens. It's television. It's vision. Mm. So
again, with media and Apple TV, the way they're going to go with it, in the pure size and enormity of it.
Yeah. So of course they were always going to make a huge thing out of what is the evolution of television. I'm surprised we didn't actually see a bit more, for instance, when it came to festivals, like music festivals and seeing this live and things. But I think they've given us a taste, right? It's going to be the ultimate home movie experience in terms of like a floating screen or being immersed in an environment, and that it has even future capabilities for integration of 3D movies. And then as we move, for instance, to
which have never really taken off, to be fair, have they? They've never looked very good, but now suddenly.
Now you've got the platform to do it in a much better way. Although saying that, it is only a 90 hertz refresh display. So for instance, Avatar, which was designed for, I think is it 60 hertz or 120?
120, I thought.
120. So it's not going to be able to run at the full intended thing there, but in the future it should, because it's only 90 hertz, right? Or 96 hertz, this display.
That's what I was just going to check. It's 96, isn't it?
Yeah. No, yeah. It's 90 base, but it does 96 minutes doing like 24 frames per second film or something like this. But either way, this will also... They said it can support full 3D films, so this will also, as new content like that becomes available, it will do that. But yeah, this is going to be an absolutely incredible movie experience for anyone who loves that kind of thing, and for someone who has an expendable kind of wallet and loves films and loves that. It really can be a no-brainer, But it's not just that. Apple have positioned this as a spatial computer, not just an entertainment device. And I think
they were very careful with their terminology, weren't they?
Yeah, they were, and
very on point.
That's because it's not just going to revolutionize something like TV. It's going to do it for a lot of things as well.
Yeah, I mean, they were very careful about this whole spatial computing. It's the first Apple product that you look through and not at. Again, obviously Apple's marketing is kind of second to none. So if we begin to sort of think forward now, not into the future of AR, but into the next 6 months, what happens? What is going to be going on in the background?
It's a good question, because they've said that it should come out early next year. And I imagine...
Doesn't be long, is it? 25, 30 weeks?
Well, I mean,
if it's early,
Yes, but they said this in for Apple Watch, I think, and that came, April or like closer to mid-year, I think, is more likely. What I honestly think will happen is that I think they pulled a bit of a fast one with this, in the sense that they've made it look like your average person is going to be able to buy this, but I don't know if very many people in just a home setting will actually get hold of this headset. What I think will happen is the majority of people who get this headset are going to be developers. They're going to be the priority right out the gate. And then by the time it comes so that your average person can actually get hold of this headset, I think a few people will, and there'll be the people who just want this as a piece of history, But actually, I think by the time that they come to this becomes available in big numbers for your average consumer. They will probably announce the SE version or whatever they're going to call it, the one that's slightly cheaper.
So let me get this right then. So you think that the announcement they're making for early next year, whenever that is, let's just call it 2024, at that point, you still think it being fairly limited numbers?
Yeah, 100%. I think.
Right, okay. So it won't be the mass market. Well, when I say mass, it won't be for all of the people that they could sell it to at 3,500. You reckon it'll still be quite a limited number?
I think that they the way they'll do it is they'll be like, it's available, but there's a wait list, and that wait list will preference developers to start, and that a very few select amount of people will actually get hold of this so that they can talk about it. Because they will only want a certain type of person to also get this, someone who's not going to judge it too harshly. And that's another reason for the price and releasing it like this, because you only want people who can understand it completely to speak about it or whatever. And I honestly think by the time it comes to a point where some people might be considering getting it because they really want it at that point, Apple will then tease a future headset that's maybe even better and a cheaper one, and then you'll go, I'll just hold off for 4 or 5 more months to get this one, right? And by that point, Apple will probably have ironed out a lot of the kinks with the first generation product. That's my feeling, but maybe we won't see a cheaper product for another 2 years, and then maybe people start to get hold of this at the end.
So again, it's something that I've probably taken the wrong end of the stick on then. I kind of thought that in the interim, developers would be sent kit now, between now and January, February, March, April, whenever, to physically be working on development. You don't think that's the case? You don't think anyone in the outside world is going to be sent units to be working on?
I believe, and we can double check this, but I believe what they've said is that they're going to, and they do this in prior things as well, because it's all control, like it always is. There are development locations that are going to be around the world, and I think there's 6 or something to start, like London, America, whatever. You will have to go to that place to then try your application on the headset before it gets released next year. I don't know if they're going to release it early to developers like they did with Apple Watch or whatever, a month before it came out. But again, that won't be probably still next year anyway. I don't think we're going to see a lot of people with this device until next year.
So now we've got the first piece in the jigsaw puzzle. We've got Apple Vision. And knowing, as we've said, everything is a plan with Apple, you're probably smart enough and switched on enough to this whole world to see what you think their plan is now moving forward. How do you see them developing this into the sort of more $500-600 product that will come 5-6 years to make? Who knows how quickly it can move? But what do you think their longer term plan is now you've seen what they've set as the high bar?
Well, it's in part what I said to you before. All of these kind of elements that represent the technology that they intend to move forward with this product, right? So we kind of already see the future they intend with this line. I just think that they're going to minimize and make more efficient all the parts that you already have in, and just continue to shrink it down. I do think that the eventual form factor is something closer to glasses, something you can wear every day. And basically this is the headset to start with, this is the glasses, and then I think we'll just see a progression from this device to that device over time. What that will mean is increasing, display resolution, increasing FOV, bringing down form factor, increasing ergonomics, finding a way to put battery on device, making the front pass-through display bigger, all of these things. I think that's what we'll see in terms of hardware. Then in terms of software, what I think we'll see is basically a transition from all of the softwares we usually use into kind of these 2.5D or kind of semi-spatial, I guess you could call them, right? And then from semi-spatial, we'll move into kind of maybe more full spatial. I think once people start to get used to the platform, then they'll move into kind of far more AI integrated computing, even though they call it machine learning.
So if we think the next stop might be this muted SE model, what would make it SE compared to this? Where would the savings be made? I mean, presumably scales of production will begin to kick in at some point, but where do you see the savings would be made that it's the SE? With iPhone, we know what the differences are. You get a lesser camera, you get a lesser quality front screen and so on. You get, we can see. So where would they pare this down then?
Well, my guess is that because I said before, this is a minimum experience that they want to create, it won't get worse than this. So my guess is that volume plays a big part in how they're going to bring down the price of the next one. By having a volume of all these devices that has been proven from Vision Pro, then they can talk with manufacturers and get down the price on all of these items. Also, they might have found more efficient ways to manufacture these, easier ways to do it, like new technologies that enable the same thing in a smaller form factor. But my guess is that we'll see something very similar to the tech stack that's in the Vision Pro, but just more efficient basically, and at a higher volume, which allows them to kind of bring down cost. There may be something like similar comfort features, but not so kind of like crazy in terms of design, like maybe it's just for the headband and stuff, it's a little bit smaller. But I basically imagine that it will be very similar, but just because they've done it at such a mass scale, it's cheaper. And as you know, they're constantly developing each and every component within their own system, and then as soon as new versions of these are ready, they're able to put it in.
So then I want to cover the fact of, was two things I wanted to make sure to cover. On the live stream, when we're watching it, we mentioned about prescription lenses. That is now clear that you send your prescription to Zeiss, and they're apparently saying it's going to be between $300 to $600, I guess, on how heavy your prescription is.
Yeah, I mean, I find this very weird, right? Because you're almost, what's the word? You are penalizing people for having bad eyesight. Like, that's not fair. Like, you should. I think that's a terrible, terrible choice. I understand.
I read one blog today saying, would Apple subsidize it? I don't see Apple digging into their back pocket anytime soon. That's not their style. You want, you buy, you pay.
Yeah, and it's also like a bit of a kick in the shins, because like these people, they already have, anyone with glasses already had to pay that much money for lenses on their eyes, right?
Yeah.
So are you telling me, because eyes change as well, you're telling me that every time their eyes change, they're not only going to have to buy new glasses, but new inserts for their VR device? That would suck. Yeah, unless
how do you work around it? Because you need a premium visual concept. It has to be spot. And one of the very first things you ever told me was how close these panels have to be to your eyes to get the experience. So clearly there is no room for glasses in there. Absolutely not. I get that. But then who's going to pick up the tab for? I'm guessing it's a very large percentage of people that wear glasses. I've got slightly, I'm very slightly short-sighted, so it probably wouldn't affect me because I don't have to wear it for TV that's up close. But in fact, that's a point. Would I be watching TV up close? I'd be watching it in the distance. Yeah, so I probably would need my glasses, because although the headset's there, I'm actually watching it.
So if you've got the prescription, the way it will work is it will correct for your vision problem, even no matter like how you perceive it, basically, because the screens are a certain distance away from your eyes. So it just allows your eyes to focus on that screen with your particular eye
prescription.
Problem. Yeah. But so that might also be an indication that they intend this to eventually replace your glasses, right? Because they don't want you to buy both. But it's not there right now. And actually, in their patents, they do talk about kind of there are ways to have this diopter change in headset or with optics, but it would have made it thicker or bigger. And I think that they thought this was a simpler way to do it. But
they could almost dial it in on device.
And I think that they will do that in the future. That will
makes sense.
Maybe it's the Vision Pro Max will have this automatic updating, and it's a feature that they do want to bring, because if they're replacing glasses, then they want to do everything glasses can do and more.
Yeah.
Which is another reason I think it's called Vision Pro. But I do find that a very strange choice, and especially to charge people for it, because you've just turned a $3,500 device into
$4,000.
Yeah, exactly. Or over $4,000. And just because you have glasses, like, this is a replacement for glasses. That for me is like the weirdest thing about this product. And I don't think it's fair.
And something else you mentioned on Monday that I think kind of surprised you was how little they lent into gaming. They really cocked a snook at that, didn't they? They really didn't seem to want to have any part of that. They didn't see that as their future with this product.
And I have a couple of thoughts about that. The first is that this device is a little bit heavier than we thought it was going to be. And it has this giant glass front, right? If you're moving about very quickly in all of these things, there is a chance you might break this glass. Now, I think it's laminated, so it shouldn't break in the way glass normally does. It should be safe. But we're still talking about a panel of glass breaking on your eyes. We're also talking about a heavy device that leaves a red mark around your face. So I think this is a calculated decision on Apple's part to not have anything too physically vigorous. Because if you notice, they didn't also do fitness.
I was thinking that as you said that, yeah.
So
yeah.
this is clearly they don't want people to get hot and bothered in this headset, right? This is a big one. But what some people have just noticed yesterday, apparently, because of this new code that Apple have put out, especially for the M2, apparently there's a way to port like every PC Windows game directly onto an M2.
Oh, I saw something about that today. Yeah.
And I wonder if that also applies to the headset. If you've got your Mac connected to the headset, it's basically every Windows game playable on a 2D screen in this headset now, which, although for us, what we like, this comes back to the VR crowd wants spatial games because we love them, right? But the majority of other people would just love to be able to play the current games they have in the headset. And that is what Apple have essentially just done now, I believe, with the game controller. I don't like that personally because I know the potential of full spatial games and I just can't wait for that. But Apple knows the long game. They know how to get people interested. They know how to get the mass kind of wanting or desiring this product, and they'll continue to pursue that.
Because there is absolutely no plans, as far as we can tell, for any kind of controller at all, are there? It's all going to be hand and eye.
No, yes, this was a really big point, David. The fact that this was basically Apple saying this is where we think the future is. It's an evolution of gestures, and that the base for all XR experiences should revolve around this. I do believe that they have opportunity to release kind of maybe some very specific haptic tie-in controllers, but I think what we'll probably see from them in the future next is kind of these little fingertip devices that have because
almost like thimble type of things.
Yeah, because Apple have basically, it's a long game again. They have these things called taptic motors inside of their iPhones, right, and their devices. And these are solenoids, and a solenoid is a kind of device that can move backwards and forwards.
On and off, yeah.
Yeah, electrical pulse. And it can do so very quickly and very accurately. And what you can do is you can replicate physical feelings using this taptic motor. So you can make it feel like you're pressing a button. You can make it feel like your finger is running over a rough surface. There are all kinds of things these taptic motors can do. So the data they have collected over the years of putting them in their phones, they can now apply to this.
Right, yeah.
So you put a tiny little taptic motor on each of these fingers, and all of a sudden when you go to grab something in VR space or using the touch and things that they do, all of a sudden
you get feedback.
This brand new level, exactly. But not just feedback, but this feedback loop, which is important. Because all of a sudden I can interact with something based off how it feels to touch it, as opposed to having to then look at it and see what my finger is doing with that device, you know? Like the same way I can operate a character in a video game with a thumbstick by just feeling where that thumbstick is with my thumb without having to look at it, right? But at the moment, like we still have to do this or have to see where our finger is with a touch screen. But with the feedback, you all of a sudden open up this whole new world. And of course, touching things in the virtual world is going to add a whole new level of immersion. So I believe that it'll do that first before any potential future glove or controller or anything. It will be touch focused.
Also, I wondered if it's a little bit of them flexing and sort of almost saying, look, we have developed this technology so well, we're confident you don't need a controller. It works. And that is one of the constants. I mean, I've seen a few varying or opposing opinions this week, but one of the constants has been the eye tracking apparently is phenomenal. And the swiping, moving screen to screen, everything apparently is so intuitive. Within seconds, they're saying, no, I understand it. It's fine. It works.
Yeah. And I think it's something that Apple has done before, and they understand that you need this kind of unified base that people can then use to create their experiences moving forward. And again, it comes back to this is a device for the masses, not really for the XR crowd, because right now the XR crowd, all the unified kind of setting is this point and shoot trigger item. But they like Apple knows that this is not the universal interaction unit for the mass majority. And they will continue to serve this mass majority until the XR crowd becomes a big enough kind of moneymaker for them that it makes sense for them to then move, because you also split the market, right? If you create controller-based games, then developers have to choose if they want to do hand tracking or controller or do both, which is a lot of work. So by saying there's one that works super well and here's how it should work, you open up all kinds of possibilities in there. You also end up with some limitations. So especially kind of like shooting games and things like that are going to suffer massively from this. But it has Bluetooth, so who knows? Maybe if a PS4 controller works with it, I don't see why other
could hook it up
controllers. But I wouldn't expect it. Basically, is what I'm trying to
say. I think probably one of the last big questions I was going to ask, and I've got the big dunces cap on. You're the bright and brilliant one. Moving forward, we've gone through the SE. If we now move forward to glasses, my question to you, as the resident dunce of this conversation, is how? How do you get all of that into glasses? I just don't. I mean, I like to think I'm fairly forward thinking, but I just don't see where it all disappears to.
Yeah, it's going to be a very tricky problem, and it's not going to happen anytime soon. But if we look at, for instance, the evolution of the Mac, it was this big computer, this big thing, and then all of a sudden it's a flat screen. So it's possible. There is going to have to be some future evolutions, but I can give you an idea of what that might look like. So, for instance, at the moment we have pancake optics, Apple's own custom pancake optics. They're very small and they put them right next to the screen, but there is an evolution of those optics which is called holo optics, where I don't know if you know what a hologram is, but it's where you
I know what a hologram is. You
can the 2D ones, you can encode 3D information into a 2D plane. And what people have figured out how to do is to encode the lens geometry into a hologram plane, so that when the light hits it, it kind of interacts with this hologram optics and comes out as it should, as if it passed through the optics. So all of a sudden we've turned that giant optic stack into a plane. Yeah. And that gets smaller. Then that can go right next to the display. Then cooling. So at the moment there's a fan behind each of the.
There is cooling. There is active cooling on these, aren't
there? There are. I posted a video on my Twitter because, fully enough, Apple's.
I'll try and find that and link it.
They put the AR models on the page for you to do, but you can actually download them. And then I actually looked inside, and they had left the fans inside the model, so we were able to see that. And it's one on each display. So, for instance, this new technology where you've got solid state fans, so maybe they move to a model like that, or maybe they can get it efficient enough they don't need the fans. So that comes out. Then you've got 2 chips right now. I can imagine them simplify. I've said this before. I don't believe they intended for there to be 2 chips at all. I think that was a byproduct of not knowing the ultimate direction of the product at the start. So I think that they will simplify into 1 chip, which will reduce space and size in there.
Right.
They will probably figure out a way to achieve the same amount of tracking and fidelity with less sensors and cameras. They will figure out a way to have a thinner lens on the front. All of these things will contribute to something that can get closer to your face,
And ultimately, when we talk glasses, we are ultimately talking about a pair of glasses that weigh fractionally more than your average pair of specs that we wear now.
I think that is a long way away, and potentially even never. Like, I think this technology will weigh something at all points in time. But actually, just made me think of something else important. If we can get a kind of the wireless element fast enough so that it matches the latency required for these experiences, then you could remove all processing off the headset and have it in the cloud.
Of course.
That is a potential way that you could have something be really small. So essentially, it just needs battery, display, and sensors, and then it just sends off and brings. But that is a long way off, Like what I would expect. Basically, the most latest concept I created might be like what we see in second generation of the device, where it gets a bit smaller, a bit closer, a bit more glasses-like. But my guess is generation 3 or 4 will start to get to the form factors where people are like.
It's almost more like sports glasses, sort of like the Oakley's kind of thing, the wraparound, slightly sealed off. Yeah. Makes sense.
That will be the evolution. Just imagine this product just getting just slightly smaller every year, basically. But I'm very excited. Like, for me, although I have to be completely honest, the industrial design for me was a bit off when I first saw it. It was not what I was expecting. But it is really growing on me. But I'm very excited to see how they intend to evolve this industrial design over time. Like, what is the aesthetic they're choosing to have on everyone's face? I think that is a very hard thing to do. So I'm excited.
And the other big win, I think we virtually covered everything, but the other big win that everyone's reported back on is virtually zero latency. which is incredible.
It's very interesting, especially a 90 hertz display. Now, so I would be careful with this because if a lot of these people going, like, my assumption is a lot of the tech reviews that are out there, they've tried some VR, but they're not people who run this every day. And then if you look at some of the reviews from people who are like XR specific, they will say that if you move your head very quickly or your hand very fast, you will start to notice some kind of like latency in this device. So it could be better. For instance, the Quest runs at 120 hertz, I think, on the display, so you can get it up to that. So that's already beyond what that is doing. I think what you're seeing really in terms of this latency is a very tight hardware-software integration where it's just super smooth on that side. But I do think that the latency probably will get better as well over time.
And am I right in thinking on something like Quest, there is enough space to wear your own glasses inside?
Yeah, so that was the Quest Pro and the Quest, you can wear glasses. You can also get prescription inserts for them as well. But I've been thinking about this a lot, actually, and I think that, first of all, Meta is probably they're a little bit less scared than what they were before the announcement, right? Although Apple has definitely gone after that mass market, which was originally a bit like, it's really funny, but this is exactly what Facebook wanted to do. Like what Apple is doing right now is what their intention was. But I think that because Apple haven't gone after the gaming or the fitness or all this, then kind of Meta know, okay, we have a market here where we could actually expand into further and know that we could still have it. So I think that there's an opportunity for Meta to make some really kind of like gaming specific or like those experiences, like basically make a device for the XR crowd that they were after from Apple that didn't come. Like that's what they should do. And I think they would sell a lot of that headset in the meantime, basically.
So then overall, as a massive AR VR fan and design fan, has this been good week, bad week?
I think it's been a very good week. I think the fact that Apple has come out with this product, even if it's not what some of us wanted in the XR crowd, I think it's going to do wonders for the whole industry. I think we can already see that a lot of people desire this and they want it. Although there are a lot of people who are a bit creeped out by it too, and I think that's very valid. I think this.
But I don't think that's so much this as the whole future.
Yes.
I don't think it's really leveled just to Apple's Vision's headset. I think it's just people, Chat GPT has freaked so many people out, and Music LM from Google. I think everything is all coming together in one big swell. I think people are just a little bit overwhelmed by what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that's true. This could also mark like the beginning of the entertainment future, where like AI does all the work and we just sit at home and watch movies all day. In which case, it's the perfect device. But for a lot of people, that might not look like a very attractive future. But I do think that this is only good for the industry. I think this gets a lot of people excited. I think gets a lot of people thinking about this area, and it kind of has revived VR again and what that means. So yeah, I'm just excited to see where this goes now. I feel like we already got a lot, but I'm like, what's next already? So
yeah, we always want more. We always want more. Well, Marcus, it's been a brilliant 6 months working with you to get to this point. And as you said, this is only kind of the start. It's going to be maybe a little hiatus now, but we know that as the next sort of 4 or 5 months move along and devices begin to get out into the public, that anything we see, we'll be back and covering it. And we're far from going quiet. We'll be covering all of it as much as we can, every step of the way. But for now, it's going to be iPhone 15 vendors for you, Sonny, I'm afraid. The glory days are over.
Yeah.
Yeah, September's coming. I need my renders, so.
Yes, I know. All right.
It's been really good fun. I just was interested because obviously we had a long, busy night on Monday. We haven't really spoken that much since, so it's really good to catch up with you and see what you thought of it. Overall, you're happy with the way the week's gone for the future of something that you're in love with?
I think so. I mean, look, I would have loved a device that would have done my what I really wanted to see was someone working in 3D and creating files and architecture and all this kind of stuff. Like that's my dream. I didn't see it yet, but I do believe that there is possibility for that in the future. What about you?
Maybe not a dream, but not a nightmare.
Yes, exactly.
For me, so I've got nowhere near as much knowledge in the whole world as you've got. I've learned an immense amount speaking with you this year. And I think the biggest thing, movies is almost given, because I'm thinking, well, if you were to go and buy a monster TV now, and say a good AR system to go with it, you're spending good money anyway. So you're probably not that far off. If you were going to go and get, I don't know, a 76 OLED screen or something, you're probably spending deep money anyway. So I don't see that is necessarily the argument. It's just a different way of consuming the content. And I would have thought a better way, to be honest, because you're limitless in size. You've got an IMAX in your living room. So for me, if you're spending $2,500, well, you've obviously got disposable. To spend that extra money probably isn't the end of the world for you if you're that person. And also working on a Mac. I mean, I spend 8 to 12 hours a day on a Mac. If I can now do that comfortably, in better definition, on huge, great screens, it's a win.
Or in a more calming kind of environment, which we talked about.
Exactly.
Like being able to...
And even better posture. You know, you can be standing, not always hunched at a desk. You're working in good posture, and that's something that hasn't really been spoken of. But, it could just have other benefits as well. So I actually came out... it took me a couple of days to watch a lot and read a lot and try and draw some opinion of it, and obviously watch as many videos as I could of people that have experienced it. And we're all in that position at the moment, apart from that very select few. And everything I'm hearing sounds positive. Yes, it was in a controlled environment, but it would be. You'd expect it to be.
Yeah.
But it's not ready for us just yet.
No. And we might even see some slight changes to the product by the time kind of it gets
I'm sure we will.
line. And I think there are lots of ways you can look at this product that makes the price make sense. Like you've just said, there are lots of use cases. There's the TV use case at home. There is even business use case, like what would a business spend on a Mac,
travel,
or even just a computer for a new employee? Like, can this provide more utility for those people? Probably. Like there is that. But I think Mark Gurman made a really good point about this. He's like, yes, it is great value when you look at it that way, but that's not the way you should frame this. You should frame this as almost closer to what the original Mac was, which would have been about $7,000 in today's money. This is a brand new platform. It is spatial computing, and it's for the future. And it is the most advanced device we've ever made. It's only going to get better from here. If you are these kind of like trailblazers, this is great value for money.
Yeah.
And
also sort of homing in on Apple's past. I mean, well, past and present, actually. Apple Watch, when it was released, was seen as kind of a timekeeping messages device. It took them a few years to realize their pot of gold sat in health and well-being. And suddenly, that's what the watch is known for. So I think, as this headset becomes more commonplace, it will establish its own niche. And also, we know that blood glucose testing is in the throes of work. Okay, it's not ready for use yet. It's got some stages to go. But apparently, from everything I've seen and read, the device that started off almost the size of a MacBook is now down to the size of an iPhone. And it just shows when you've got the might of Apple wanting something to happen with the resources, brains and manpower they've got, if there's one company that can make it happen, it is them. And I think, this is a bigger, brighter, bolder, better version of Apple Watch. And that's their second best-selling device and the best wearable device, best-selling wearable device in the world. So, I think it'd be a fool to sit here and say, nah, this isn't right. I think it very much is right.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, which is that I think potentially Apple have been a little bit humble with this product, like they found out with Apple Watch, which is the sense that we're in a place in the world where you can make a use case and things, but as these products get far more complicated, you really have to let them evolve naturally. You have to let the market show you how it's going to use such a complicated product, because it's emotional decisions don't necessarily work. You can make assumptions, but moving forward, you have to forget. And I think, to Tim Cook's credit, I think this, if it was him who made this decision, was basically that. Like, he understood that we have to make the minimum experience we want to have this product, which is what we've got with the touch, with the hardware, but we have to put that into the hands of the people who are going to figure out what it's for. And I think what we've seen is exactly that. They've learned from the Apple Watch, and now they're applying the method that they got to eventually with Apple Watch with this product. So I think as time moves on, we're going to see more and more kind of definitive use cases,
absolutely,
kind of key applications that will come out.
Nowhere knows quite where this sits at the moment. As I say, it's come in a year, be that good or bad, when suddenly AI has freaked the life out of many people. Everything's happening very quick at the moment. I think once there's a little bit of calm and this headset is out there, I don't see this as being a danger. I can only see this as being something positive and a really, really bright, exciting future as well. You know, the way it's going to bring families together even easier, even better. I mean, they announced that with continuity camera now that FaceTime is coming to Apple TV. You won't need that very soon. This will do all of that and more.
Yeah. I mean, unless you're kind of like sat at home with the family on the couch, like I still think that's like a 6-year, maybe 8-year kind of jump before we get to kind of the whole.
Oh yeah, there's a gestation period, but the rug's been pulled now. We see where we're going.
Yeah, if they are successful and they manage to develop this fully, I mean, I can totally see them kind of undoing a lot of their own product lines, right?
Yeah,
like and it would also make sense for them. Like, but at the same time, I also think they would want lower price points into their services, right? Because that's what makes them money.
Yeah, I mean, eventually, you know, they'll be saving R&D and support and all of that goes with it in having iPads. If everything is integrated into one product, they can, and this is a much longer term plan clearly, but they can integrate all of their resources into just one product line, can't they? So we've put the world to right. That's what we've done. We've sorted it.
Yes.
Well, it's really good catching up because, we haven't spoken an awful lot this week. There's been so much going on and you and I have things to do during the day as well. But it's been fantastic catching up with you again, Marcus. Thank you for all of your input on this. And well, I say, if you're watching the video and you've got any questions, agree, disagree, or think we've got completely the wrong end of the stick, just get involved and leave some comments. And you'll be seeing me and Marcus again very, very soon, I dare say.
I hope so. Thanks, Dave.
Cheers, Marcus. Cheers.